The rain was coming down in sheets when the car finally sputtered to the side of the road, headlights washing over a shape that looked far too still to be human. In that frozen second, with 3 small lives asleep in the back seat and a storm howling like a warning, one exhausted single father had no idea that stopping the car would save a stranger and quietly rewrite the future of his broken family. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when ordinary people choose compassion over fear, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter, and your support keeps them alive. Evan Mercer had learned to live with constant exhaustion. It clung to him like a second skin, heavier than the dark circles under his eyes and more persistent than the ache in his lower back. Since the accident that took his wife 3 years earlier, life had become an endless loop of responsibility, sacrifice, and survival. Raising triplets alone was not something he had ever imagined for himself, and yet here he was, navigating every day with 3 4-year-olds who depended on him for everything. The mornings began before sunrise with spilled cereal and mismatched socks, and the nights ended long after midnight with laundry folded in silence and bills spread across the kitchen table like accusations. Love was there, deep and fierce, but so was fear. Fear that he would never be enough, that one mistake would unravel everything. That night, Evan was driving home from his second job, the triplets asleep in the back seat after he had picked them up from a neighbor who watched them late. The road was mostly empty, a long stretch of highway cutting through fields and trees, illuminated only by his tired headlights and occasional flashes of lightning. His mind drifted between worries about rent, the noise his car had started making, and the guilt he felt for not being more patient with the kids earlier that day. He almost missed the shape on the roadside, a pale form half collapsed near the ditch, soaked and unmoving. His first instinct was to keep driving. He had children in the car. He had responsibilities. Stopping meant risk, delay, and complications he did not have the energy to face. But something in his chest tightened, an old instinct that refused to be silenced. He slowed the car, then pulled over despite his better judgment. The rain soaked him instantly as he stepped out, heart pounding, eyes scanning the darkness. As he got closer, he saw that it was a woman, her clothes torn and muddy, her skin cold to the touch. She looked fragile, like life was barely holding on to her. Panic surged, but Evan forced himself to act. He called for emergency services with shaking hands, wrapped his jacket around her, and stayed with her, shielding her from the rain as best he could while glancing back at the car where his children slept, unaware of how close their father was to breaking. Minutes stretched into an eternity until the ambulance arrived, lights flashing like a promise. Evan gave what little information he had and watched as they loaded her onto a stretcher. He almost left then, ready to retreat back into his carefully contained world of survival. But something stopped him again, a quiet pull he could not explain. He followed the ambulance to the hospital, the triplets still asleep, their small chests rising and falling in the back seat like anchors keeping him grounded. The days that followed were a blur of routine and worry. Evan returned to work, to parenting, to the relentless rhythm of his life, but the image of the woman on the roadside lingered in his mind. He wondered if she had survived, if anyone was waiting for her, if stopping had truly made a difference. A week later, he received a call from the hospital. The woman had woken up. She was alive and she wanted to see him. Her name was Clara Hale, and her story unfolded slowly, like a wound reopening. She had been on her way to start over, fleeing a life marked by loss and betrayal, an abusive relationship, a string of misfortunes, and a final decision to leave everything behind had led her to that stretch of road. Her car had broken down, her phone died, and hypothermia had begun to claim her before Evan's headlights cut through the darkness. The doctor said that without immediate help, she would not have survived the night. Evan listened as she spoke, his own struggles echoing in hers in unexpected ways. He saw not just a woman who had been saved, but a person who had been pushed to the edge and given another chance. Clara thanked him with tears in her eyes, calling him a miracle, a hero. Evan didn't feel like either. He felt tired, unsure, and overwhelmed, but also strangely lighter, as if helping her had cracked open something inside him that had been sealed shut since his wife died. Clara didn't disappear from their lives after that meeting. She started small, offering to help however she could. She brought groceries one afternoon, then helped watch the triplets while Evan worked late. The children, who had grown wary of new people, warmed to her in a way that surprised him. She was patient, gentle, and present, qualities Evan had been stretched too thin to offer consistently. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she became part of their routine. Evan struggled with the change at first. Letting someone in meant risking more pain, more loss. He had built walls out of necessity, convinced that love was dangerous when you had so much to lose. But Clara never pushed. She understood brokenness intimately and respected the space he needed. Instead, she showed up again and again, proving through actions rather than promises that she was not another responsibility but a support. As weeks turned into months, the house that once felt heavy with grief began to breathe again. Laughter returned in unexpected moments, like when the triplets tried to help Clara bake and covered the kitchen in flour, or when Evan came home to find dinner waiting on the table for the first time in years. Financial pressures didn't vanish, and exhaustion was still a constant companion, but it no longer felt as suffocating. There was someone else to share the weight, someone who understood that healing was not linear, and that strength often looked like asking for help. Clara, too, found herself changing. Being part of a family gave her a sense of belonging she had lost long ago. She began volunteering at a local shelter, determined to be for others what Evan had been for her on that stormy night. Watching her transform pain into purpose inspired Evan in ways he hadn't expected. It reminded him that survival was not the same as living, and that his children deserved more than a father who was merely holding things together. The true test came when Evan's car finally gave out, leaving him facing a repair bill he could not afford. Old panic resurfaced, the familiar fear of everything collapsing. But this time, he wasn't alone. Clara helped organize a small community fundraiser through the shelter, sharing their story not as a plea for pity but as a testament to kindness coming full circle. Neighbors he barely knew showed up. Donations came in, along with notes of encouragement. Evan stood there, overwhelmed, realizing that stopping for one stranger had connected him to an entire network of compassion he never knew existed. Through it all, the triplets watched and learned. They learned that helping others mattered, that family could be built in unexpected ways, and that love was not something that vanished with loss but something that could grow again if you let it. Evan saw the change in them, in their confidence, their laughter, their sense of security. It healed parts of him he hadn't known were still hurting. Years later, Evan would often think back to that night on the roadside, to the moment he almost didn't stop. He understood then how fragile life was, how a single choice could ripple outward in ways no one could predict. Clara had woken up in a hospital bed, but in many ways they had all awakened together, to hope, to connection, to the possibility of a future not defined by tragedy. If this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you that kindness can change lives in ways we may never fully see, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps spread these stories of hope to the people who need them most. Before this story ends, we have one special request. Please comment below and tell us what this story made you feel, or share a moment when kindness changed your life. On a quiet evening, as Evan watched the triplets fall asleep with Clara reading softly nearby, he felt a peace he once believed was gone forever. The road ahead was still uncertain, still demanding, but it was no longer lonely, and it all began with a single decision made in the rain to stop for someone who looked like they were already gone, and in doing so, found a way back to life for them all.